Across the deserts and canyons of Utah, there are places where life didn't end loudly. It simply stopped. Stone homes still cling to cliffs. Villages sit frozen in time. Rock art stares back at us with no explanation. The ancestral puebloans built thriving communities, then walked away. In Grand Gulch, families chose to live high in the cliffs, then vanished without a trace. And the Fremont culture, present for centuries, quietly faded from the land, leaving behind symbols we still can't fully understand. These weren't accidents. These weren't simple failures. Something pushed entire cultures to change, move, or disappear altogether. Climate, conflict, belief, survival, maybe all of it, maybe none of it. Tonight, we're stepping into that silence, following the clues left behind in stone, shadow, and dust, to ask one question that still has no clear answer. Why did they leave? Nazi ancestral puebloan abandonment. The desert doesn't forget. It just stays quiet. And if you walk through southern Utah long enough, past the red cliffs and dry washes, you start to feel it. Stone walls, half melted back into the earth. Doorways that lead nowhere. Villages with no voices. This is the land of the Anasazi, also called the ancestral problems, and one question still hangs over it like heat in the summer air. Why did they leave? Around 1,200 to 1,300 years ago, this region was alive. Families farmed corn, beans, and squash. Smoke rose from rooftops. Kids ran through plazas. Ceremonies echoed inside kivas. This wasn't a small group barely surviving. This was a strong, organized society spread across Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. And then, in what feels like a blink of history, they were gone. When explorers and settlers first came across these ruins, they thought they were looking at the remains of a lost civilization. Entire towns abandoned, food storage rooms still intact, tools left behind. It didn't look like a slow fade. It looked sudden, almost like people stood up one day and walked away, leaving their lives behind. That's the mystery that still pulls people in today. The ancestral puebloans didn't live randomly. They chose their locations carefully. In Utah, places like Cedar Mesa, Grand Gulch, Com Ridge, and the San Juan region were packed with homes, towers, and cliff dwellings. These were not temporary camps. Some villages were lived in for generations. You don't build this much unless you plan to stay. They were smart engineers. They knew how to farm in dry land, using runoff water and soil traps. They built stone homes that stayed cool in summer and warm in winter. They tracked the sun and seasons. Some buildings line up with solstices. Others face exact points on the horizon. This tells us they understood time, weather, and the sky. So when people say, maybe they just left because it was hard, that answer feels weak. One of the biggest theories is drought. Tree ring studies show that the late 1200s were extremely dry. Years went by with little rain. Crops failed. Springs dried up. In a land that already walks the edge between survival and disaster, this mattered a lot. But drought alone doesn't explain everything. These people had lived through dry periods before. They had ways to store food and move farming areas. Also, not every region dried out at the same time. Some areas had better water, yet were still abandoned. Another idea is violence. Evidence of conflict does exist. Some villages were built higher and harder to reach. Some show signs of walls added later, almost like defenses. A few sites have remains that suggest people died violently. This has led to theories of raids, internal fights, or pressure from other groups moving into the area. But again, this doesn't fully answer the question. There is no sign of massive war, no burned cities across the whole region. And if people were fleeing danger, why leave behind so much? Religion and belief may have played a role. For the ancestral puebloans, the land was not just dirt and stone. It was alive, sacred, connected to balance and order. If something broke that balance, years of drought, failed crops, rising tension, people may have believed the land itself had rejected them. In that way, leaving wasn't failure. It was the right choice. There is also strong evidence that they didn't vanish at all. Many modern Pueblo tribes say clearly, "We are still here." Their ancestors moved south and east toward the Rio Grande and Hopi mesas. Oral traditions tell stories of long journeys, of leaving places when the time was right, of following spiritual paths. So maybe the mystery isn't why did they disappear, but why do the ruins feel so empty? One detail that still bothers researchers is how clean some sites are. In places like Mesa Verde and parts of Utah, rooms were swept, trash pits were sealed, sacred items were removed. This suggests planning, not panic. It feels like an organized departure. Yet, at the same time, some villages look frozen in motion. A bowl here, a tool there, corn still stored in bins. Why take some things and not others? Why leave behind food during hard times? One possible answer is timing. The move may have happened in stages. Families leaving at different times. Some planned, some rushed. Some stayed too long and left in a hurry. Over decades, not days, the land slowly emptied. There's also the Fremont culture, which lived in Utah at the same time. They also disappeared around the same period. Two cultures, different styles, same ending. That hints at something bigger than just one group's problem. Climate change, yes, but also social change. Trade networks may have broken down. Belief systems may have shifted. Younger generations may have wanted something different. When systems that hold a society together start to fail, people don't always fight to stay. Sometimes they move on. Today, when you visit these sites, the feeling is heavy. Grand Gulch, for example, is quiet in a way that feels intentional. You hike for miles, and suddenly, a whole village appears in a cliff wall. Rooms stacked on rooms, handprints on stone, and no sound except wind. The positive thing is that many of these places are protected now. They are part of national monuments and cultural sites. Rules exist to keep people from damaging them. Some areas limit visitors, others require permits. This helps preserve what's left. The negative side is erosion and time. Walls collapse, rock art fades. Looting has already done damage in the past. And climate extremes, stronger storms, hotter summers, are speeding up decay. Once something is gone, it's gone forever. There's also a human problem. Some visitors don't respect these places. They climb where they shouldn't. They touch fragile walls. A few even steal small artifacts, not understanding that removing one piece breaks the whole story. Still, standing there, it's hard not to feel respect. These were real people, not myths, not shadows. They laughed, worried, planned, and hoped. They faced a choice that many societies face even today: stay and struggle, or leave and survive. My personal opinion, I don't think there was one single reason. I think the ancestral puebloans saw the signs piling up: dry years, social stress, spiritual warnings, and made a collective decision over time. Leaving was not a collapse, it was adaptation. That's what makes this mystery powerful. It's not about a lost people, it's about human choice. The present situation at these places is mixed. On one hand, they are quieter than ever. Fewer people live anywhere near them. On the other hand, more people visit, more cameras, more curiosity. Preservation efforts are stronger, but threats are too. The ruins still stand, but barely. The mystery still lives, but softly. And the desert? The desert is still watching, holding its silence, waiting for anyone who walks through to ask the same question again. When the world changes, do you stay or do you go? Grand Gulch cliff dwellings. There are places that don't want to be found. You don't just drive up, step out, and see them. You have to work for it. You hike for hours through heat, dust, and silence. When you're panic, you get to live with a long stare, and you hate gust and silence. Your legs burn, your water runs low, and just when you start wondering if it's worth it, you look up, and there it is. Stone rooms, tucked high into the cliff, blended so perfectly with the rock that they almost disappear. This is Grand Gulch, and these cliff dwellings are one of the deepest ancient mysteries in Utah. At first glance, the question feels simple. Why did people build homes in places like this? But the longer you stand there, the more that question grows. These weren't just shelters, they were choices, hard ones. Grand Gulch cuts through Cedar Mesa in southeastern Utah. It's a long, winding canyon filled with alcoves, overhangs, and hidden side canyons. Water runs here, even in dry years. Cottonwood trees grow along the bottom. Animals pass through. To ancient people, this canyon was a lifeline. But instead of building on the canyon floor, many ancestral puebloans chose the cliffs. Some of these dwellings sit hundreds of feet above the ground. You can see ladders carved into rock, handholds chipped into stone, roots that feel dangerous even today. Carrying food, water, children, tools, all of that, up and down every day, would have been exhausting. So again, the mystery comes back. Why here? One idea is safety. High places are easier to defend. You can see danger coming. You can control access. And during times of stress, that matters. Evidence from the late Pueblo period suggests growing tension between groups. Cliff dwellings may have offered protection from raids or conflicts. But here's the problem. Many of these dwellings are not easy to defend. Some are visible from far away. Others are tucked deep inside alcoves that would trap people inside if attacked. And there's very little proof of large battles in Grand Gulch itself. So defense can't be the full answer. Another theory is climate. The cliffs offer shade in summer and warmth in winter. The rock holds heat at night. Overhangs protect from rain and snow. In a desert environment, this is smart design. Living in the cliff could be more comfortable than living on open ground. That explanation makes sense, but it still doesn't explain the extreme locations. Some homes are placed so high and narrow that one wrong step could mean death. Comfort alone doesn't push people to take that risk. Then, the storage. Grand Gulch is famous for its granaries. Small stone rooms used to store corn in seeds. Many are hidden high up, sealed tight. These weren't homes at all. They were food banks. Keeping food safe from animals, moisture, and thieves was critical. But here's where it gets strange. In many places, homes and storage are mixed together. Families lived right next to their supplies. That suggests something more than simple storage strategy. Spiritual meaning may be the missing piece. For the ancestral puebloans, the world wasn't divided into practical and spiritual. Everything mattered. Cliffs, caves, directions, light, shadow, all carried meaning. Living closer to the rock, closer to the sky, may have had deep symbolic value. These alcoves could have been seen as sacred spaces, places between worlds. Some dwellings align with sunlight in specific ways. Morning light floods certain rooms. Shadows fall across walls at exact times of year. These weren't accidents. They show intention. Grand Gulch also contains thousands of rock art images, handprints, animals, spirals, human figures. Some are near homes, others are placed far away, hidden, as if meant only for certain eyes. This suggests the canyon itself was a spiritual landscape, not just a place to live. And yet, despite all this effort, these places were abandoned. By around 1300 CE, most of the cliff dwellings were empty. Just like the wider ancestral puebloan world, Grand Gulch went quiet. No fires, no footsteps, no voices bouncing off the zone. What's haunting is how complete the silence feels. Some rooms were cleaned before being left, others weren't. Some still held corn cobs when they were discovered centuries later. Why leave food behind during hard times? Why not take everything? One possibility is that these places were closed on purpose. In many Pueblo traditions, when a place's role ends, it is left behind as part of a cycle. You don't strip it, but let it rest. Taking everything might have been seen as wrong. Another idea is speed. Maybe some families planned to return and never did. Weather, illness, or conflict could have forced them to keep moving. What we do know is that people didn't disappear into thin air. They moved. They joined other communities. Their descendants still exist today. For them, Grand Gulch is not a mystery. It's a chapter in a longer story. But for outsiders, the cliff dwellings feel frozen in time. Today, the condition of these sites is both amazing and fragile. The dry air has preserved wood beams, fingerprints in plaster, even corn husks. That's a positive. Few places in the world hold ancient life this clearly. The negative is that preservation is delicate. Foot traffic damages trails. Touching walls leaves oils that slowly break them down. Some structures have already collapsed. Others lean, held together by gravity and hope. Looting has been a serious problem in the past. People dug into rooms looking for pottery or tools, leaving holes and broken walls behind. Laws are stronger now, but damage done decades ago can't be undone. On the positive side, access is limited. You can't just wander in. Permits are required. Rangers monitor use. Education has improved. More people understand that these are not ruins to explore freely. They are cultural remains. Still, Grand Gulch feels lonely. And maybe that's the point. When you stand inside one of these dwellings, you feel small. You imagine a family sitting there, watching the same canyon, listening to the same wind. You wonder what they were thinking. Did they feel safe, afraid, hopeful? Did they know they would be the last to live there? My opinion? I think the cliff dwellings were built during a time of change. A response to uncertainty. Not panic, but caution. People adapting their homes to a world that felt less stable. And when that world changed too much, they left. Not because they failed, but because staying no longer made sense. The present situation at Grand Gulch is quiet, but tense. It survives because people care, but it's always one bad decision away from damage. Climate stress, careless visitors, and time itself are constant threats. The canyon is still there, and we cannot do this. old green gulch. The dwellings still cling to the cliffs, and the mystery remains, hanging above the trail, just out of reach, like the homes themselves. Fremont culture, disappearance. There is a strange thing about history when it goes quiet. Not loud, not violent, not dramatic, just quiet. One day people are there, living their lives, leaving marks on stone and soil. And then, slowly, they're not. No final battle, no clear ending, just absence. That is exactly what happened with the Fremont culture, and that silence is what makes their disappearance one of Utah's most unsettling ancient mysteries. If you've traveled across Utah, you've already passed through Fremont land without knowing it. Their world stretched across central and northern Utah, parts of Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, and Colorado. They lived near rivers, valleys, and mountain edges. They weren't cliff dwellers like the ancestral puebloans, and they weren't nomads like later groups either. They sat somewhere in between, and that in-between nature may be part of why they vanished. The Fremont people lived roughly between 300 and 1300 CE. That's a long time, longer than many well-known ancient cultures elsewhere. They farmed corn, but not always. They hunted, but not constantly. They gathered wild plants. They adapted. Their homes were simple, pith houses dug partly into the ground, with roofs made of wood and earth. Warm in winter, cool in summer. Practical, quiet, effective. They left behind incredible rock art. If you've seen tall human figures with wide shoulders, big eyes, and strange head shapes carved into stone across Utah, you've likely seen Fremont art. These figures feel different from ancestral puebloan designs. More bold, more symbolic. Almost like they're staring back at you. And then, around the same time the ancestral puebloans were leaving the south, the Fremont culture fades away too. That timing alone raises questions. At first, researchers assumed the Fremont were simply absorbed by other groups. Maybe they became part of later Utah or Shoshone peoples. Maybe they moved on and changed their way of life. That explanation sounds neat, but the evidence doesn't fully support it. Fremont material culture doesn't smoothly evolve into later cultures. Their pottery style ends. Their house designs stop. Their art disappears. It's not a clear transition. It's a break. So, what happened? One popular idea is climate stress. Just like their neighbors, the Fremont lived through periods of drought, especially in the late 1200s. Farming became less reliable. Rivers shrank. Wild food sources changed. For a people who balanced farming and hunting, losing either side of that balance could be devastating. But again, drought alone feels too simple. The Fremont survived dry times before. They were flexible. They weren't locked into massive cities or heavy farming systems. If any group should have adapted easily, it was them. Another theory is pressure from other people. As populations shifted, competition for land increased. Groups moving in from the north and west may have pushed into Fremont territory. The Fremont might have been outnumbered, slowly squeezed out, or forced to change their lifestyle so much that they stopped being Fremont in any clear way. This idea makes sense, but there's a catch. There's very little evidence of widespread violence. No burned villages, no mass graves, no clear signs of war. So if there was pressure, it may have been quiet pressure. Slow change. The kind that doesn't leave scars on bone or stone, but still reshapes lives. One of the most interesting clues is Fremont rock art itself. Over time, the figures change. Early art is detailed and confident. Later images are fewer, simpler, sometimes rushed. That could suggest stress, fewer resources, less time, less certainty about the future. It's also possible that Fremont identity was never as rigid as we imagine. Maybe Fremont wasn't a single people, but a loose collection of groups with shared habits. When conditions changed, those habits changed too. And when the habits disappeared, so did the culture, at least in the way we label it. In other words, the people didn't vanish, the label did. That idea fits with the lack of a dramatic ending. No collapse, no clear goodbye, just a slow blending into something else. Still, there are details that bother researchers. Why did Fremont farming stop so suddenly in many areas? Why do sites go empty at the same time across such a wide region? Why do some valleys that were once full of life stay empty for centuries after? If people simply moved, why didn't others move in right away? One unsettling possibility is disease. We rarely think about it in ancient North America, but disease can move silently through populations, especially as trade networks grow. There's no direct proof, but there wouldn't be. Disease doesn't leave clear marks on stone tools or pottery styles. Another idea is belief change. Fremont culture sat between worlds, between farming and hunting, between settled life and movement. If their spiritual system was tied closely to that balance, then breaking it could have caused a deep cultural crisis. People may have lost faith in old ways and chosen entirely new paths. When belief systems break, cultures can dissolve fast. Today, Fremont sites are scattered across Utah. You'll find them near rivers, in open valleys, on low cliffs. They don't scream for attention. You can walk right past one and never know it's there. That's part of the mystery too. Their quiet nature makes them easy to forget. The current condition of Fremont sites is mixed. On the positive side, many are well preserved. The dry climate has protected rock art panels for centuries. Some pith house outlines are still visible. Tools and pottery fragments remain where they were left. On the negative side, these sites are extremely vulnerable. Because they don't look dramatic, they're often overlooked and unprotected. Farming, construction, and off-road vehicles have destroyed many Fremont locations without anyone realizing what was lost. Rock art panels have been damaged by graffiti, bullet holes, and touching. Some figures have faded so much they're barely visible now. Once they're gone, there's no replacing them. There's also a lack of public awareness. Most people know the ancestral puebloans. Few know the Fremont. That lack of attention means fewer resources for study and protection. And yet, standing in front of a Fremont rock art panel is deeply personal. The figures feel present, watching, waiting. They don't tell you a story directly. They just exist, asking you to think. My personal opinion is this. The Fremont didn't disappear because of one disaster. They disappeared because the world around them changed in too many small ways at once. Climate stress, social pressure, shifting beliefs, new neighbors. None fatal alone, but together enough to end a way of life. And maybe that's the most human ending of all. The present situation of Fremont sites today is fragile but hopeful. Archaeologists are paying more attention. Tribes are reclaiming connections to these places. Education is improving. But time is always winning. The Fremont are gone, but not lost. Their silence still speaks, if you're willing to listen.